Hello and welcome to Witness. I'm Raggy Omar. After 14 years of civil war, it's hard to know where to start rebuilding the shattered country of Liberia. Villages were abandoned as locals lived wild in the bush to avoid the marauding armies of both the government and the rebel forces. But now that peace has arrived, people are slowly returning to their homes. Gorlu in northern Liberia is typical. 2 years ago, there were only 45 people living there. Now, it's a thriving village of almost 5,000, led by a mayor known as Old Man Luis. Luis is only 47, but after the carnage Liberia has endured, he is one of the oldest men left alive. The townsfolk are determined to provide shelter for any native son or daughter returning home. They work together to make enough mud bricks for everyone to build a home. Journalist Tara Sutton went to Gorlu to meet some of the courageous characters determined to rebuild their lives using just mud and guts.
I am spending a week in Liberia, a country that was torn apart by 14 years of civil war. But now peace has finally arrived, and people are slowly starting to return home, making the epic journey back to their villages. I traveled to a village called Gorlu. I wanted to know what returning home means for the ordinary Liberians who've made it back, those who are trying to rebuild their homes and resume their previous lives, which were lost to war. When I arrived, I was warmly welcomed. My first impressions of Gorlu? It was busy. Everywhere I looked, people were rebuilding, and it was all being done by hand. I stayed with Esther, my guide and translator. She lived here with her 4 children, 3 nephews and nieces, in a house she built herself. During the conflict, Esther fled to the jungle, or bush. She had lived in the wild at the mercy of soldiers for several years. I want you to tell me about when you born him.
And when I born him?
What the situation was.
This boy was born in June 1st, Sunday night.
Where?
In the bush. In the bush. When I delivered, there was no clothes, no food. The bush can be risky. I saw people killing in front of me. I saw the dead body. The God were looking like this. I was afraid to pass there.
She saw what happened to a woman that soldiers thought was a spy.
They grabbed her. They used the knife. They cut her throat. She was yelling. But her mother was in a place there. They told her if she cried, they were going to kill her. Her mother was in that town.
In spite of all that they have been through, or perhaps because of it, I found the people of Gorlu quick to laugh. Esther joked that she would give me her baby boy to take home with me.
How you go, you naked? When you pass in and they say, oh, I bought naked passing, oh, that man from Lova with big pot.
Memories of the horrors of war were fresh. It was hard to fathom all that they had lost. And the village, with its collapsed bullet-ridden buildings, was full of reminders. The town chief, a 47-year-old called Old Man Luis, came to show me around. He explained that there had been no front lines in the war, and Gorlu was at different times used by opposing sides as a military base.
It left in the house. And it left in the house here, the government will come and see them. They will blast their house. And the government will bring the house, the land they will blast their house.
Destroyed all the houses?
All the houses, the clinics, schools, everybody. They destroy everything.
When Gorlu was attacked, Luis and the rest of the village fled. He told me when they returned, the village was derelict and the jungle had taken it over. So this village was empty until...
Totally empty, and we came back, no structure. No structure was here. The place was a ghost town. No.
But people are returning. In the years they were away, some lived rough in the bush, others in refugee camps, and many in a combination of the two as they constantly ran from war.
2 years ago, there were only 45 persons were here. There are 4,945 now living here.
With their houses destroyed, the first challenge for those returning to Gorlu is to find a place to live.
There are 490 horses. The unfinished horse, 110.
Louise told me that until they can build a new home, those returning live with relatives or cram themselves into tiny shelters. If there's no other place for them to stay, then they sleep on the floor of the local town hall. So you could put a whole family in here?
Yes, we come, everybody bring back.
So Gorlu, like thousands of other villages all over Liberia, is currently one big construction site. After years away, they have to return home and build a new house from scratch, by hand. They start with wood and mud structures. Then, once that is built and they have shelter, they begin working towards building a sturdier brick home.
Every year I made 55. I need 2,005. So if I get 2,005, will give me 4 rooms.
Finishing enough bricks for a new house will take Luis almost a month and a half. But not everyone in Gorlu is so lucky. Next door, Luis's aunt and a grandmother of 7, Lofo, is trying to build her house single-handedly.
How long is it going to take her to make all the bricks?
For many displaced women like Lofo, the war has had a devastating effect on their families. They have come home, but their husbands are missing or dead, and women are now the sole breadwinners. With her husband missing and sons absent, rebuilding her house in Gorlu is a struggle for Lofo. She's cut herself the 360 sticks needed to make the frame for her house, but that's as far as she's got. Traditionally, groups of men like Luis and his friends make the mud walls. They work collectively, taking turns to complete each other's homes. But with no men in her family, Lofo has been left out of this labor exchange. She told me a bit more about her life in Gorlu before the war.
Hey.
Was he handsome?
He was fat.
I'm going to what kind of
I wondered what she thought about coming home, not only to this mess, but to having to start all over again.
Why did she come back?
Baba dingana. Yamai. Dingaba. Yanga family adikaba.
Now, all that remains of Lofo's immediate family are her orphaned grandchildren. In the meantime, she's going to have to rely on financial aid to finish her house. Here, the International Committee of the Red Cross have stepped in. They are donating small amounts of money for families that need it, so they can pay workers to help them finish their homes. It's up to the town committee, made up of representatives from the community, to decide who in Gorlu needs help the most.
Who's supposed to get it beneficiary? Not everybody's supposed to get it, but some people who's supposed to get it, so you appoint them.
There was disagreement among the representatives. Not everyone felt that single widows were the most vulnerable.
Every day, from the display camp, from the refugee camp, every day people are arriving. We all have been affected by the war. Once only particular groups together.
What do you think the solution is?
The solution is people the most in need should receive.
And do you think that's what's happening at the moment? The people the most in need are receiving?
No.
But when the time comes to finish her home, Lofa will be among the widows that will get help. In Gorlu, the night fell fast. I went back to Esther's home. She gave me her bed. With all the problems I'd heard that day, it was good to see how happy Esther and her family were, just to be together. And I realize family is wealth here in Gorlu.
After the break, we'll be looking at how former child soldiers are also trying to rebuild their lives. Join me then.